right, welcome back to the show. Today, I want to talk about goals, and I know I've talked about goals before, but to me, it's probably the most, if not the most important, top one or two most important things that you can do in your real estate investing business, in your business, in your life in general. So let's get into it. Oh, before I forget, this is episode 98. I looked at that before I started recording here. It's insane to me. Absolutely insane. And I can probably tie this in the goals too. But when I started, it's kind of a scratch that I needed to itch. And it's been fun. It's definitely been a learning experience from all levels, personal development, business development, learning things, learning from others. I even learned from what I say, because most times after the show, I'm like, why did I say that? Or I missed something, or I missed 10 things, and I'm always critiquing it. There's been a lot of episodes that, especially the ones by myself, that I've redone just because I thought they were garbage. So I've done a lot of take twos, take threes, which happens. This is episode 98, which is crazy to me. So I appreciate everyone for listening, and hopefully you guys are gaining value. So let's talk goals. I heard this, and I don't remember where I heard this, but I heard this the other day, and this goes back to kind of communicating your goals. But what if your kids, what if your spouse, what if your team members asked what your goals were? Or I guess a better way to put it is, do they know what your goals are? I would think business-wise, and I'm working on this, I believe my team knows some goals, and I probably need to be more transparent about all of them. They should know your goals. Your team should know your goals. Your kids probably should. I don't know that my kids are, they're getting older to where maybe they would understand some. But yeah, I probably need to fill them in on more of the goals, more of the things that I'm looking to do, as well as my spouse, my wife. And that goes back to basically when you tell somebody your goals, it holds you accountable, right? And I think a lot of us, I know for myself, probably withhold that for two reasons. One, we may think those people would think we're crazy for whatever goal we're shooting for. And on the other side is we may be scared to see what person we become when we hit that goal. And I think that happens a lot. I think we're afraid of what that may look like, what sacrifices we may have to make to get to that goal. And what kind of, because anytime, especially a big goal, anytime we achieve it, along the way, we change, right? Hopefully for the better. Hopefully the goals are productive and positive, but we definitely change. And I think a lot of times we're afraid of that. We're afraid of what we may lose, whether that's friends, time with people along the way, sacrifices, whatever it may be. I think we're afraid to lose some things. And I think that's probably why. So that's going back to being accountable, by telling people. I think we're afraid just to do that. And then I think if we hit our goal, it's like, yeah, we hit it. But I didn't tell anybody about it. So it's, it's kind of a bonus there. But back to my point, tell people, communicate it. And I'm talking to myself. I need to communicate it more, what my goals are. And that holds myself accountable to these goals, to the people that are most important in my life, obviously. And then are they clear? How clear are your goals? To me, writing them down makes them super clear. You can't fake that, right? And sometimes that goal may change, but it's got to be super clear. It's no different than a roadmap. You got to know where you're going. If the roadmap's not very clear, you're not going to know where you're going, clearly. So they need to be clear. Do they have a timeline? Are they a 10-year timeline? Is it, hey, I want to be financially free in 5 years? It's a long time. And listen, I've made that mistake. I think that was my goal probably, I don't know, around 2016, 17, somewhere in there. And 2020 became a reality. But I think my goal was for it to happen by 2022. So I was at least 5 years out that I wanted to become financially free. Looking back, I should have said a year. And I should have broken that down, which is what I do now with goals. Should have broken that down. What does that first year look like? What does that second year look like? What does the first 6 months look like to achieve my goal? And then, you can break it down even further. What does that week look like? What does that day look like? What little goals that can I put in place to reach my bigger goal? And that's daily goals, weekly goals, monthly goals, quarterly, twice a, whatever it is, you got to break those down into smaller goals to attain your big goal. And really it's that simple. It's boring. Most people don't want to put the work in, but that's what it is. It's exactly what it is. You're kind of reverse engineering it, and you're figuring out the steps to take to get there. That's all it is. So whatever goal you're shooting for, you just got to break it down. Break it down in small bites. You don't have to take a big bite to get there. Break it down in small bites, and it's just gonna happen. Next one is, are your goals big enough? I see this a lot, and that kind of goes back to timeline too. People push that timeline out to make them feel safe, but what usually happens is if they've got a 5-year plan, it usually takes them 5 years to get there. When in reality, maybe they could have gotten there in 9 months. But are your goals big enough? Are you kind of shooting for the stars? Or are you kind of shooting for, 100 feet away? I see that a lot. Most people just don't shoot for big enough goals. Why not? We're only here once, right? We're only on this planet once. The worst that could happen is you don't hit your goal, or you don't hit your goal in your timeline, but you're going to learn a lot along the way. You're going to become a better person. You're just going to get a ton of value out of it. So shoot for big goals. Do they have impact to others? And my goals have changed more to that. How can I impact others positively? And my goals have definitely changed more towards that. And I think the last show, we talked about filling your cup. I think that's part of it. I think, one, you've got to fill your cup. You've got to be full. So for me, that was becoming financially free first. And then there's a little bit of a transition there. But for me, it was probably a couple of years. But now my goals are, I still have some goals for myself, but I also have team goals, and also team goals that will help my team members out, and then goals that will help out, community, we'll call it, and donating, giving back, things like that. This is what this podcast is to me, is giving back. While there's some probably selfish reasons too, it is giving back. So are your goals impactful to others? Probably, maybe the biggest thing, and this is probably my last point here, is, do you have something that's really pushing you to attain your goal or goals? I see a lot of people that, I talk to a lot of people that are in 9-to-5s trying to get out of their 9-to-5, right? And their goal is to get out of it, and they still kind of enjoy their job, or maybe they really enjoy their job. So they don't have that big, fire behind them, pushing them, which is what I had. I did not want to be in my job. I was there, I think, 11 or 12 years. I learned a lot, but it was time. It was beyond time for me. I was to the point where it was mentally not good for me. And that was probably, I don't know, 3 or 4 years, maybe 5 years. I don't know exact timeline. But there were a few years there where mentally it just wasn't good for me. So I knew I needed out. I had that big thing pushing me to get out. And I think you need to find your big reason. If you don't have that big reason, you're probably not going to stick to your goals. You're probably not going to break them down. You're probably not going to tell others. You're probably not going to do all these steps, right? So you've got to find your big why. Why am I going after this goal? And really, it's as simple as it is. Goals are pretty simple. I just see a lot of people not doing all these things. They have this great idea and it feels good. Like, yeah, I want to become financially free in 5 years. And it's a cool thing to say, but they're not doing the steps to get there. And the steps are super easy. They may even know what the steps are. They just don't do it because they don't have their big why. I think that's number one where you got to start, and then all the other things kind of fall in place. So that's all I've got today. Hopefully you guys are finding a ton of value in this, or at least some value, I guess. Again, this is episode 98, which is insane. I think I heard a stat somewhere where if you make it to 100 podcast shows, that's kind of a hump. And I've definitely had some humps to try to fight over and get over. And because at times this is, I feel like I know I've talked about goals before, but hopefully each time I talk about the same thing, I add something nuanced in there. But there are so many things that only certain amount of things that you can talk about. But I am planning on we're getting a podcast studio here shortly. So hopefully more live guests. Have some changes. So anyways, appreciate everyone listening to the show. Again, this is episode 98, which is insane. And we'll see you guys next time.
Thanks for following, subscribing, and listening to this episode of the Do More podcast hosted by John Farling. To learn more or ask questions, go to l4investing.com.